Sophia's fingers pressed the final note on the piano keys, and applause surged like a tide in the Munich concert hall. She stood up, bowed to the audience, a perfectly practiced smile, honed 1,000 times, playing on her lips. The stage lights shone on her meticulously styled chestnut curls, and her pearl earrings swayed gently at her earlobes, earrings Alexander had personally fastened on her wedding day 7 years ago, now cold to the touch. Magnificent, Miss Schneider, the orchestra concertmaster approached, shaking her hand softly. Mozart's soul has been revived through your fingertips. Sophia nodded politely. Thank you for the compliment. Her gaze drifted over his shoulder, toward the backstage exit. Another flawless performance, another night returning to that mansion filled with smart surveillance but not an ounce of warmth. Alexander always said it was, for family honor, yet he'd even forced her to switch from her usual vetiver conditioner to his chosen citrus scent, a cloying aroma she hated, just as he knew all her preferences but never bothered to accommodate any of them. In the dressing room, she slowly removed her stage makeup. The woman in the mirror had fine lines at the corners of her eyes, and beneath her well-maintained face lay years of taut nerves. She instinctively stroked the wedding ring on her ring finger, its indentation deep like a shackle. Alexander demanded she wear it at all times, even when alone. Her phone lit up with a message from him, board meeting tonight. Don't wait up. She let out a cold laugh and tossed the phone into her bag. After 7 years of marriage, his board meetings were always more important than her. What was even more absurd was that it seemed every corner of the city had his eyes. Last week, she'd merely glanced at the cellist a few extra times in the Opera House lounge, and when she got home, she found a file on the musician prominently placed in his study. She should have realized it wasn't a coincidence, it was a warning. The night wind at the back entrance of the concert hall was chilly, and Sophia pulled her cashmere coat tighter around herself. Her high heels clicked sharply on the stone pavement, each step like treading on a taut violin string. Unbeknownst to her, in a black Mercedes not far away, Alexander's assistant was recording her figure with a telephoto lens, streaming it live to his boss in Zurich. "Excuse me, madam," a deep male voice called from behind. She turned to see a tall figure. Under the street lamp, the man's muscular outline was faintly visible beneath his tight t-shirt, and his blonde hair was tied back in a small ponytail. His blue eyes sparkled with unpolished enthusiasm, completely different from Alexander's coldness. "I'm Marcus. I had the pleasure of listening to your performance," he said, revealing white teeth. "You played so beautifully that I couldn't resist following you to praise you in person." As he spoke, his breath carried a faint scent of cedar aftershave, a long-absent, unrestrained smell she hadn't encountered in years. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Thank you, but it's getting late." She was instinctively wary. Alexander's possessiveness had made her guarded around strangers. "Just one coffee." Marcus gestured toward the 24-hour cafe on the corner, his eyes sincere. "I promise, it's just about music. The ornamentation in your performance of Don Giovanni was so unique. I want to know where you drew your inspiration." At the mention of music, Sophia's tense nerves relaxed slightly. It had been too long since anyone had talked to her about music with such focus. Alexander's conversations always revolved around business and socializing. The cafe was warm, and she sipped her latte as Marcus told her how he'd switched from professional boxing to personal training, and how classical music had helped him get through the hardest days when he was bedridden with an injury. "Music is my second life," Marcus said, his gaze falling on her hands. "Your hands are so beautiful, so slender, yet they can produce such powerful notes." He suddenly took her fingers gently in his palm, warm and rough, completely different from Alexander's pampered hands. A jolt of electricity ran from her fingertips, and Sophia didn't pull away. "Please, call me Sophia," she said softly, a longing in her voice she hadn't noticed herself. Marcus's thumb caressed the back of her hand gently. "Sophia, do you know? From the moment I first saw you, I knew we were meant to meet." How cliched, Sophia thought. So why was her heart racing so fast? She knew it was dangerous, knew Alexander's spies might be nearby, but the passion in Marcus's eyes was like a beam of light, piercing the 7 years of darkness in her marriage. "I'm married," she said, her voice lacking any real refusal. Marcus smiled. So am I. But that doesn't stop us from being friends, does it? He let go of her hand smoothly, no sign of overstepping, something that put Sophia more at ease. What she didn't know was that Marcus's phone in his pocket was secretly recording their conversation. The gym had been losing money badly, and he was desperate for funds. When Alexander's assistant had approached him, the promised sponsorship fee was enough to make him take the risk. Stepping out of the cafe, the cold wind sobered Sophia slightly. She looked down at the business card Marcus had given her, with his gym address and handwritten phone number. At the edge of the card, she faintly saw a familiar mark, the exclusive watermark of Alexander's Enterprises. Her heart skipped a beat, but she quickly reassured herself, it was probably just a coincidence. Her phone lit up again, a message from the housekeeper. Madam, sir has instructed that herring salad, your least favorite, will be served for breakfast tomorrow. Sophia bit her lip and carefully tucked the business card into the innermost pocket of her wallet. She knew it was another warning from Alexander, but she couldn't take it anymore. A taxi pulled up at the corner, and her flushed cheeks were reflected in the window. She unconsciously touched her burning earlobes, a long-forgotten feeling of excitement. As the taxi crossed the Izar River, her phone vibrated. Home safe. Marcus's message read, accompanied by a winking emoji. The driver was sneaking glances at her in the rearview mirror, so she turned sideways to hide the phone and replied quickly, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Lakeside Villa. She deleted the conversation immediately, her heart pounding like a student who'd stolen sheet music. She'd chosen the Lakeside Villa because she'd secretly disabled its smart surveillance long ago. It was her only act of rebellion, though she had no idea she'd already fallen into Alexander's trap. Can I help you? The pharmacist suddenly appeared, startling her into knocking over a row of hand creams. She'd been pretending to browse vitamins, but in reality, she was checking if the signal blocking the surveillance was stable. The rainstorm hit suddenly on Wednesday. As Sophia checked for the third time that the curtains were fully drawn, the doorbell rang. Marcus stood at the door, soaked to the skin, his gym bag dripping water. There was a car accident on the way, sorry I'm late. She pulled him inside, lowering her voice. Do you know how risky this is? My husband's spies are everywhere. It's worth it, Marcus said, shrugging off his coat, water splashing on the Persian carpet. He turned her around to face him. We haven't seen each other in 2 weeks, and you didn't even send a goodnight kiss. The mix of rainwater and aftershave on his body made her temporarily forget the danger. On the piano stood a photo of her and Alexander in Santorini, their smiles fake in the picture. Sophia reached out and flipped the frame over onto the keys, her fingers brushing the cold ivory. Alexander had given her this piano, yet he'd never allowed her to play it at home, saying, music doesn't belong in private spaces. My husband's assistant asked about my schedule for Wednesday yesterday, she said, letting Marcus unbutton her shirt, her voice trembling. Just tell him you're teaching a difficult student, Marcus said, kissing her collarbone as his phone in the gym bag lit up. The screen showed a call from Lena, which quickly went dark. He instinctively turned off the phone, his movements flustered, but Sophia didn't notice. She was immersed in the long-absent intimacy, ignoring all the red flags. The rhythm of the rain beating against the floor-to-ceiling windows drowned out the sound of rustling clothes. Sophia suddenly stopped his wandering hands. Wait, what are you wearing? The cologne you gave me, special for you, Marcus said, burying his face in her neck, not seeing the way she froze instantly. She'd deliberately bought it to test him last week, after he'd said he liked citrus scents. She'd clearly told him she hated that smell, yet he'd forgotten, just as he'd forgotten she hated being disturbed while playing the piano, just as he'd forgotten she was allergic to herring salad. A trace of doubt crept into her mind, but before she could think further, Marcus's kiss silenced her. She didn't notice the fresh scratch on his back, a shape no gym equipment could have made. She also didn't notice that the condoms in his gym bag were the same brand as those in Alexander's bedside table, brands Alexander had deliberately instructed his assistant to leak to Marcus. Meanwhile, Lena was staring at her husband's gym pants in the washing machine. A chestnut curl floated in the laundry detergent suds, 3 inches longer than her own blonde hair. She picked it up and held it under the bathroom heater. Its ends carried the familiar scent of vetiver conditioner, the same scent she'd smelled on Marcus's shirt last week, when he'd claimed it got on him from a female client at the gym. "Marcus," she called out to the empty apartment, only the dripping of an undone faucet responding. His gym bag, which usually sat in the hallway, was nowhere to be seen. She walked to the desk and opened Marcus's laptop, which he'd left unlocked. His schedule showed private client training for Wednesday afternoon, but she'd checked secretly last week and there had been no appointments booked for that time. What made her even more suspicious was that the gym's financial statements showed a loss of €120,000 last quarter, yet Marcus had bought a new watch recently. She opened the cloud backup. Marcus had forgotten to turn off location sharing, and a red dot on the map lingered on the eastern shore of Lake Starnberg. She zoomed in on the satellite image, and the price tag for the lakeside villa district popped into her mind automatically. It was no place an ordinary client could afford. "A difficult student lives here," she sneered, taking a screenshot and sending it to a contact labeled Lawyer R. The lawyer replied quickly, attaching a name, Alexander von Schneider. Seeing the name, Lena remembered Marcus mentioning a wealthy boss who's going to sponsor the gym last week, so the sponsor was the husband of his wife. A terrible suspicion formed in her mind. She dried her hands and dialed the private number Alexander had provided. As soon as the call connected, she got straight to the point. "Mr. Schneider, this is Lena, Marcus's wife. Your wife and my husband are at your lakeside villa right now, aren't they?" There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by Alexander's cold voice. "Mrs. Hoffman, it seems we share a common goal. Meet me at the east gate of the villa district in 20 minutes. As the rainstorm eased, Sophia finally couldn't hold back her question. "That scratch on your back, was it really from gym equipment?" "Of course," Marcus said, grabbing his shirt and pulling it over his head to cover the red mark, his tone flustered. "I accidentally scraped it while lifting weights." His phone on the bedside table kept vibrating, showing Lena and 13 missed calls. Sophia wrapped her robe tighter around herself. "You should go home." Her doubts were growing. Marcus's fluster, the details he'd forgotten, all made her uneasy. Marcus paused as he fastened his belt. "My birthday is next week. You promised to spend it with me." "I'll find a way," she interrupted him, suddenly hearing the electronic sound of the garage door opening. Both froze. Alexander was supposed to be on a business trip in Zurich, not returning until Friday. As Marcus bolted barefoot toward the terrace, the condom box fell out of his gym bag. Sophia frantically pressed the garage remote, praying it was just a system glitch, but the connected message on the remote screen made her blood run cold. The surveillance she'd disabled had long since been restored by Alexander. Outside the villa, Lena stood at the security booth, rain dripping from her umbrella onto freshly printed property registration forms. The security guard looked at the soaked woman suspiciously. "Mr. von Schneider's villa? You're not on the visitor list." "I'm a friend of his wife," Lena said, shoving her phone screen in front of the guard, showing a photo of Sophia she'd found on social media. "She said the pool heating system is broken and asked me to check it." As the guard frowned and checked the registry, Alexander's car pulled up slowly. "Let her in," he rolled down the window, his tone brooked no argument. "I invited her." The guard didn't dare ask further and waved her through immediately. Inside the villa, Sophia pushed Marcus into the walk-in closet. "Be quiet." She kicked the condom wrapper on the floor and covered it with the Hermes scarf Alexander had given her, the only time he'd ever remembered her preferences, now used to cover up a scandal. The blue light of the garage sensor flickered in the dim hallway, and Alexander's polished Oxford shoes tapped on the marble floor. "Darling." His voice was like iced champagne, showing no emotion. Sophia gathered the loose belt of her robe, forcing calm. "Why are you back early?" The photo frame on the piano was still flipped over, and she stood sideways to block the keys, fearing he'd notice. Alexander removed his platinum cufflinks. "The meeting in Zurich was cancelled. I wanted to surprise you." His gaze swept over the wet water stains on the floor, and a cold smile tugged at his lips. It seems the rain made you cancel your student's lesson. A faint thud came from the closet. Sophia's ankles began to shake. Why yes. I just dropped the last one off. Alexander suddenly reached out to smooth the collar of her robe that had flipped up, his fingers brushing the red mark on her neck. You have some foundation here. His smile didn't reach the corners of his eyes, and the coldness of his fingertips made her shiver. He'd clearly felt the mark, but had pretended not to notice. The sound of Lena's high heels came from the backyard. Sophia's pupils contracted. Is someone outside? Probably the gardener, Alexander said, unbuttoning his suit jacket casually. By the way, do you know a woman named Lena Hoffman? The doorknob of the closet began to turn. Sophia rushed over and pressed her back against the door. And no. I don't. Her voice cracked. She knew it was over. Alexander pulled a stack of photos from his briefcase. That's strange. This lady sent me some interesting things today. In the photos, Marcus was putting his arm around her waist as they walked into the villa, the lakeside villa's gate in the background. I can explain. Sophia's ears were buzzing. Explain what? The closet door was suddenly thrown open, and Marcus stood there with his bare upper body still sweating. Alexander rolled up his shirt sleeves slowly. It seems my fishing line was cast perfectly. As Lena rushed in holding her phone, Marcus was scrambling to pull on his pants. Get a clear shot. Alexander suddenly pulled the belt of Sophia's robe loose. Especially the heart-shaped birthmark on Mrs. Schneider's hip. In the flash of the camera, Sophia finally saw the coldness in her husband's eyes. It was the first time in 7 years he'd touched that birthmark, and it was to make the adultery photos more explicit. She remembered the charity gala last week, when Alexander had offered to sponsor the gym where Marcus worked. She remembered him accidentally mentioning that the lakeside villa's surveillance was broken. She remembered how his business trips had always perfectly avoided her meetings with Marcus. It wasn't a coincidence. It was an elaborate plot, 11 months and 6 days in the making. You planned this all along. She trembled as she grabbed a vase and threw it at Lena, but Marcus jumped in front of his wife to protect her. That's enough, Sophia. Alexander picked up the condom wrapper from the floor. A budget brand from the German supermarket. It seems my wife is trying to save me money. He smiled at Lena's camera. Do you need a close-up, Mrs. Hoffman? Sophia's nails dug into her palms, and blood dripped down her pearl bracelet. She suddenly realized Alexander had never loved her, he hadn't even hated her. She was just a tool to get revenge on her father. Years ago, her father had forced him into marriage with threats of shareholding, and he'd spent 7 years plotting to ruin her reputation. To humiliate her father, Lena dragged Marcus out by his ear. We'll settle this at home. The heel of her shoe crushed the pearl from Sophia's earring on the floor, and the pearl rolled to Alexander's feet, where he crushed it without mercy. As the rain began to pound the floor-to-ceiling windows again, only the nominal husband and wife remained in the villa. Alexander pressed stop on the voice recorder in his phone. For the sake of the divorce settlement, I suggest you stay quiet. Sophia stared at the flipped photo frame on the piano. The blue sky of Santorini now looked like a shoddy joke. After 7 years of marriage, all you were waiting for was to catch me cheating. 11 months and 6 days, to be precise. Alexander opened his leather notebook, filled with detailed records of her movements. Since the first time you snuck into my study to book a room at the Lakeside Hotel. Since the day you stared at the cellist's ass in the Opera House lounge. He pulled out a stack of photos and scattered them on the piano, each marked with a date. Every meeting between her and Marcus had been meticulously documented. The last photo was of Sophia in the pharmacy yesterday, trembling as she deleted messages from her phone. You've been spying on me. Sophia's lips turned pale. Just protecting the family's reputation. Alexander pressed the remote control, and the garage door rose again. Your things will be delivered to the Vienna apartment tomorrow. By the way, the orchestra board has received notice terminating your performance contract. I told them you're morally corrupt, unfit to play classical music. As Sophia grabbed her car keys and rushed into the rain, she heard her husband making a phone call behind her. Yes, freeze all joint accounts. No need to contact her father yet. I want him to see his pride and joy become a despised adulteress with his own eyes. Rain mixed with mascara streamed into her mouth, salty like the tears she'd secretly swallowed when forced into the marriage years ago. In the rearview mirror, Alexander stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, raising a glass, his lips forming the words, "Enjoy your new romance." 2 days later, the clinic was in chaos. Marcus rushed out, coffee stains on his sweatpants. Lena just froze all my accounts. Alexander pulled the gym sponsorship too, I have nothing left. Sophia threw the lighter Marcus had given her at his chest. You promised to marry me after the divorce. You said you loved me. The blood from their struggle a few days earlier still lingered under her nails. Seduction. Sophia tore open her collar to reveal the bruises. Who bit this? The text messages promising to run away together on Wednesday are still on my phone. The clinic owner poked his head out, it was Marcus's father. Take this argument elsewhere. The reporters will be here soon. He pulled Marcus's arm roughly. Do you want to get my son killed? Lena's voice drifted out from inside. Mr. Hoffman, I've left the compensation calculation form here. She held up a tablet, and the number on it made Marcus's face turn ashen. 870,000 euros, more than he'd earn in a lifetime. Sophia took the opportunity to squeeze into the clinic. What a coincidence, Mrs. Hoffman, she said, pointing at Marcus. Your husband was telling me last night that he hasn't loved you in years. The tip of Lena's pen pierced the paper. The judge will be more interested in the adultery video. She opened her phone's photo album, showing Marcus fastening Sophia's bra clasp, the lakeside villa bedroom in the background. Marcus suddenly knelt down. Lena, it was all her idea. She seduced me, she tricked me. His sneakers crushed the fragments of Sophia's fallen earring. Seduced? Sophia pulled a pregnancy test from her bag. Did I trick you into this too? The 2 red lines glowed sharply under the fluorescent light. In reality, she couldn't get pregnant. She'd had abdominal surgery after an accident 3 years ago, something Alexander had known about but never cared about. She'd taken out the pregnancy test only to test Marcus one last time. Marcus's face turned deathly pale. You can't be pregnant. You're lying. Lena splashed her coffee in Marcus's face. So this was all a scam. The brown liquid dripped down his chin onto the divorce papers. Camera shutters clicked outside the clinic. Reporters crowded at the door, their long lenses focused on the Love Hotel receipt peeking out of Marcus's waistband, something Alexander had deliberately instructed his assistant to leak to the media. It's all your fault. Marcus grabbed Sophia by the throat. If you hadn't seduced me, I wouldn't be in this mess. His wedding ring pressed a bloody half-moon mark into her collarbone. Lena calmly took a photo of the scene. Assault and battery, adding that to the lawsuit. Her phone case still held a photo from their honeymoon, the two of them smiling so sweetly. Now the biggest irony, the clinic owner suddenly opened the safe. Here's 20,000 euros in cash. He threw the bills at Sophia's face. Is that enough to make you shut up? Sophia picked up the bills one by one. How generous, she said, licking her split lip. I wonder how much the medical board will fine you for using expired medications. She'd guessed long ago that Marcus's gym was losing money, and that the clinic had problems too. Alexander had accidentally given her this information, but she hadn't understood it at the time. The glass door suddenly banged with a police baton. 2 police officers held up a search warrant. We've received a report of illegal sales of controlled substances here. It was obvious who the informant was. Lena quickly put away her documents. It seems we won't need to wait for the divorce ruling. Her high heels crushed Marcus's fallen wallet, revealing a nude photo of Sophia inside, one Marcus had taken secretly, but which Alexander's men had found and given to Lena. Marcus grabbed his father's white coat. Dad! Call uncle quickly. The S tattoo on his lower back was exposed in the struggle, still losing fluid. Lena had always thought it was the initial of Sophia's name, but it was actually the initial of Marcus's ex-girlfriend. None of that mattered now. Sophia took the opportunity to lean close to Lena. "Do you think it's just us two?" She pulled up her phone contacts, showing 7 entries labeled, Wednesday 3 p.m., something she'd found in the lining of Marcus's gym bag, the final straw that had shattered her last illusion. The clinic owner suddenly collapsed into the examination chair. The first wave of reporters had broken through the police line, their cameras focused on the unopened drug test kits in his drawer, evidence of Marcus's drug use, which Alexander had long been in possession of. Amid the sound of police sirens, Sophia felt the voice recorder in her pocket. She'd bought it after realizing something was wrong, and it contained recordings of Marcus admitting he'd been bribed by Alexander, of him saying, "I just wanted to scam some money." Alexander's message from that morning played on a loop, "The game has only just begun." Sophia stared at the flashing police lights outside the clinic's glass door and suddenly laughed. Had she won? No. Had Marcus won? No. Had Alexander won? Perhaps. But in his world, there was never any love, only calculation. Outside the glass door, a black Mercedes drove away slowly. In the back seat, Alexander was flipping through an art gallery catalog, a corner folded down on a page featuring a female curator's profile. His gesture as he brushed his finger over her photo was exactly the same as when he touched Sophia's birthmark, cold and precise. Sophia's gaze fell on the piano-shaped pendant around her neck, a gift from her father when she was 15, the symbol of her initial love for music. She suddenly realized that Alexander had destroyed her marriage and her career, but he couldn't destroy her obsession with music. The rain stopped, and sunlight broke through the clouds. Sophia walked out of the clinic, ignoring the reporter's questions, ignoring Marcus's cries, ignoring Lena's cold stare. She was going to Vienna, not to the apartment Alexander had arranged, but to start over. She could teach piano, play in small bars. Even if she'd lost everything, she still had the skill in her fingertips, still had her love for music. Piano keys could gather dust, but music never died. Just like her life, even after betrayal and manipulation, it would eventually strike up a new melody from the ruins.